Hi friends! Today I thought we would cover the different palettes possibly in our collection that resemble Supreme Mauves. Probably by the time I upload this video, conversations will have circulated about Supreme Mauves, it not being Artist Couture's best in regards to the formula, namely the, as I called it in my previous video, the sparkler metallic shades that are quite dry. But I did find with wetting the brush and a little bit of strategy, it actually overall is okay, and the reason why I kept it and will not return it is namely the mattes. Because of the different nuances here, you have mauve, mauve brown, mauve rose. That was ultra appealing to me, but it inspired me to look into my collection. Perhaps you saw the video and you were just discouraged and had your eye on Supreme Mauves, and after what you've seen, what you read, you're like, you know what? That's a skip for me. Maybe we have shades in our collection already that could give us a Supreme Mauve moment and we won't feel as pressed about not buying it. Take a look again. This is what we're dealing with color story wise, and I immediately thought of several of my Viseart palettes. I thought about Cashmerie, which was at the time and still is one of my most favorite curations. As you see, it's a little more neutral leaning. You have the mauves in there, but dominated more with the neutral browns and even this warmer one. So we have the rose here and we have the tan brown. Together though, I think lovely, and this matte all by itself I think can steer the look to be more mauve leaning versus more brown neutral leaning. The matte from Supreme Mauves that might resemble the one found in Cashmerie, I think lust or provocative, but this has a little more lilac in there. So Royale from Supreme Mauves compared to the one from Viseart has a little more pink. Overall, I think people would enjoy the shimmers and metallics found in Viseart far more than in Supreme Mauves because these are nearly not as dry. They have a little more emollients to them. They're easier to apply. So you see here, just from the texture alone, is very smooth, almost satin-like, as opposed to, I'll do Sex Appeal, because Sex Appeal and Seductress, one of the better performing ones, but still quite dry. It has a different consistency. It doesn't have the same pickup as what's found in the Viseart palette. So that's something for you to consider if you have Cashmerie and you appreciate the fact the palette offers both neutral and mauve. Unlike Violette. Violette has a stronger mauve purple dominance here, just seeing from especially this matte here and the more neon hued duochrome found in this shimmer. This I feel resembles Supreme Mauves the most in terms of the majority of the mattes taking on more of these rosier tones. I'll switch arms here. So these are a few mattes from Violette, and I think you can tell just from the hues that they resemble Supreme Mauves more than, wrong finger, than Cashmerie, right? I think this closely resembles Supreme Mauves. Even though you have a lot of matte here, I like the metallics. They jump from it being more of a mauvey taupe from this shimmer here all the way to a deeper purple, then to the duochrome, and then we have an interesting addition. It's more like a silver blue, so I thought that was a unique take on Violette. But you know what? Those were terrible. These are great to have. Depending on which matte you pair these with will influence the look, whether it be more royal purple, more violet. I think if you have Natasha Denona's Lila, which I understand is discontinued, that palette has a wider spectrum of color. It has the mauve, but it also has the deep purples, magentas, and the cranberry shades in there. You can definitely do something with that, except as I remember, doesn't have like this pinkish lilac matte. Having this in a mauve curation like what's found here, I think is what's unique. This matte is a cooler leaning one as opposed to Royale, which is more pink leaning, but happy that it's in here. Yeah, has a nice purple tint to it. Again, really great offering of purple, mauve, all in between. I also thought about the Rose Edit. Now, warmer overall than Supreme Mauves, but you still have this brown aubergine leaning shade. You have this magenta-ish matte that I think interesting. Also, if you wanted to set up the entire eye, it taking on this color influence, then you would start off with that matte first. And then you have the peach matte and the light pink matte shade here. Some of the metallics, you have a wide spectrum. You got this lilac, but then you also have a little bit of that cranberry, right? So I would say if you have both the Rose Edit and Violette Attendu, these together I think will give you Supreme Mauves in feel. And if you prefer the Viseart Shimmer Metallic formula over what's in Supreme Mauves, then there you go. Paris Edit, which finally recently restocked, one of my most favorite edit offerings from the Viseart brand. A little more nuanced, cooler tone, I believe. You have more in terms of the mattes, more edited, right? So you have this peachy salmon color, but you also have the mauve in here, which I think serves as a great spectrum, right? You got a little bit of both. You also have the more brown, but I think that has a nice mauve tint to it compared to Kinky found in Supreme Mauves. Very similar, I thought. Kinky might look to have a little more pink in there, but similar in terms of the feel. With the metallics, interesting. You have the cooler pink, this stormy blue, which I know might seem odd upon first glance, but when you pair it with any of their shades in here, it gives a beautiful smoke while maintaining just the mood of Paris Edit with a little bit of a bronzy rose gold moment. And this here is a deeper plum. So let's take a look at some of these. Again, Paris Edit, one of my most favorites, and we're running out of space. Look at that one. The shine on that is amazing. But then you have the more purple here. If you wanted to pair it with, let's say, either, which one did I do? Any of these mattes here found in Paris Edit. So not quite mauve. I think it's more rose mauve. Yeah. But again, fantastic palette in terms of it delivering a nice balance of mattes and shimmers. But going back to the formula conversation again, Viseart metallics and shimmers I think have been pretty consistent across the board. Some have said that they wish there were more in your face, more sparkly arcly, whereas some makeup users found that these were perfect textures for their eyelids, that they can achieve that sparkle shine without too much texture from the shadow, because in Supreme Mauves, namely Risque and Stripped Down, these have a lot more texture, more dry. Risque I consider to be like an actual shade from a Pat McGrath palette. Very dry in consistency, but I think its role is to be a topper, not necessarily an actual shadow or lid shimmer metallic that doesn't exist in a Viseart palette. That's something I don't think I've seen them do, having a topper shade to create that sparkle. But again, they made it so even the metallics, I feel, some more than others, have incredible shine and noticeable after it's been worn on the lids and the oils mix in with the shadow, and the glistening twinkle effect I still think is achievable and very much present in many Viseart metallic shades. I had to pull out She's in Parties. This is not my favorite Melt Cosmetics palette. Many love this, and I get it. When it comes to Melt Cosmetics, they bring the grunge in any color story that's out there already. My critique for the palette, I found when combining shades, it muddies very quickly, whereas there's a little more freedom in Supreme Mauves that the undertones for the mattes mix well together. You won't find muddiness because they're not as cool tone. It also could be due to the matte formula. Some had said that the mattes found in Supreme Mauves are drier. I would say even if that's the case, I much prefer the Artist Couture matte formula over a melt matte formula. And I had said that I love Gemini 1 and 2, saying that Gemini possibly the mattes are softer in their most recent release, but generally I think Artist Couture mattes are easier to blend than melt ones. To swatch a couple here, Turtle Immortal and Last Caress. They're very cool leaning, and when you combine it with the dark plum here, the dark plum looks almost black when you apply it on the outer corner, and that's not a problem, but I feel it loses its identity a bit when combining it either with the mid-tone or lighter lilac shade. She's in Party Sleepwalk, more traditionally formulated metallic shades. Better stick than what I've seen from other melt metallics. Very dark, but you know, I think that's the point of the palette in terms of color story, where you have drier textures here that's found in Strange Love and Lost Control. Lost Control, well, I would say Lost Control is more of a satin with sparklies in there, and Strange Love has a lot of texture, as you can see. So a formula I would think more advantageous if applied wet, a little drier from Lost Control. These two here I think look the smoothest. So if you already have She's in Parties, definitely a lot more grungy than Supreme Mauves, and there's a lot more variety in terms of what's offered in the sparklers here with the more pink and lilac, the cranberry. These overall are very smoky across the board, so you kind of have to decide which colors are best to combine with which to lighten up the look a little bit, because if you go in with one or two of these, it's smoky. It's smoky right away, which could be a great thing depending on your skin tone. Will again determine that. Now to Natasha Denona, the Mini Love palette. There were two. I couldn't find my other one. I think this might have been the first. Did I buy Mini Love too? This is a more cool leaning matte, and this definitely deep plum. So I thought this was an interesting shade. It kind of looks like Royale from Supreme Mauves, except Royale has a little more pink, as you see there, but I thought them quite similar. And for the metallics, you have this more pinky coral metallic with the champagne and this duochrome, which has a little bit of a flakiness to it, but I think quite pretty. So sorry, did over Royale. That's the more hot pink, and that's the more lilac lavender duochrome, which I think lovely. So a lot more edited, but maybe that's preferable to some who don't want 12 shadows, right? That is a whole lot to just have 5, and it committing to that mauve story with the purples and the plums, perhaps a better choice overall. I also thought about Mini Biba, which not quite mauve, I think more rose brown leaning, another color story that I adore. This houses the cream to powder formula, which might not be a favorite for many, but I think it just great to place all over the lid and crease. From here, I thought about Audacious, which is a caramel tone mauve brown. So that gives you a little more because it's a powder as opposed to the cream powder formula, but I thought these were very similar. And if I were to build up the shade from the one in Biba, you can get a little, you know, it's there. In terms of the undertone, that rosy brown, which is what I love Audacious for, is found in Mini Biba. The other shades are more rose neutral leaning, especially this mid-tone here with the peachier matte. And here you go. Again, kind of reminds me of Kinky, where Kinky from the Supreme Mauves palette, I think it's just lighter, but maybe if you're deeper skin tone, then this shade could serve what Kinky can serve from Supreme Mauves. We only have one metallic in here, and unfortunately, it's just like a champagne. Is this a duochrome? I forgot. It's like a rose champagne gold. Lovely, lovely, but as you can see, metallics are not dominating the Mini Biba, more so the mattes in there, but the undertones I absolutely love. Of course, we have to go into Celestial Divinity from Pat McGrath Labs. When I saw Cosmic, or rather when I saw Sex Appeal has like this neon feel about it. I would say more lilac leaning. Cosmic is a duochrome, but I believe it has more pink and more shine. Maybe because that's just how the light is hitting, but yeah, man. Cosmic's a lot of fun. Odyssey, which one of my most favorites, is how would I describe this to be? Like a lavender, beautifully shiny. In here, you can, well, this is what I feel. I feel the shades in here will bring the look to be more purple leaning, not necessarily mauve. The reason why I thought about this palette is because these two shades here kind of reminded me of Obscene. Obscene is the cranberry shade. It's like a cranberry with a peachy flip. And from Celestial Odyssey, Saturnalia and is it Electron? Yes. Saturnalia is more red and Electron has that blue flip in there. It's a duochrome. So yes, especially if you paired it with the matte here, Venetian Orchid. Venetian Orchid is the, as the name says, an orchid matte, more pink leaning. So maybe you don't like mauve, you prefer more purple, lilac, pink leaning shades, which I feel dominate Celestial Divinity. And of course, we cannot forget Divine Rose I. I immediately thought of Veloria, this very cool toned matte shade. Yeah, compared to what's found in Supreme Mauves, Provocative, I thought was the closest. And I don't think it's even that close. The undertones are similar, yeah, but Veloria has a little more, but it's a lot cooler in tone, I believe. And overall, I think cooler in terms of the color story. Now, Divine Rose II, not so much the mattes, but the metallics in here, I feel are giving me some Sex Appeal vibes in terms of the names in Supreme Mauves. Divine Dusk Eleganza, much better in terms of metallic formulation. These are softer and have, running out of space, better adherence than the ones found in Supreme Mauves, better resembling the formula found in Supreme Nudes, which people were expecting from this current release. Not so much, unfortunately. So if you found that you prefer these textures and you already have Divine Rose II, maybe you have a few of the palettes I already presented, and then you combine these shades with some of the, you know, mattes found, let's say, in Cashmerie, Violette. And with Huetopian Dream, I immediately thought of Blitz Sex Tree, which definitely is giving you a lot more than Obscene. It's a multi-chrome, it's a trio chrome first off. And compared to Obscene, it doesn't have, you know, Obscene doesn't have the same shine and wet looking feel like Sex Dream does, right? But I love that it's in here because it has like that cranberry feel. And also next to Secret Eden turned out to be more rosy than how it appeared in Pan. And I think a unique shade to have in the palette, and compared to what's found again in Artist Couture, I would maybe Lust is similar. Lust is lighter, much lighter, not as rosy, a little more cooler in tone. And then you have Audacious. Royale is the more pink lilac. Audacious is the more caramel mauve. Extreme Plum Noir could give us similar feels. Is not as Prestige. I was gonna say not as cool tone as Prestige. Yeah, definitely more plum, whereas Prestige maybe give more eggplant. And lastly, you know, I had to bring out Suqqu. Suqqu definitely has a role in all these comparisons. This is Suyukiri, number 107, much more edited, okay? You got 3 mattes, 1 I would say like a topper shade moment. This is more lilac. And since I argued that Risque is more of a topper as well, Suqqu has those topper moments, but they're a lot softer. They don't have the same texture as Risque has, right? You can detect that sparkle and that glistening effect, but you can see it just doesn't have the same amount of texture, which maybe you prefer over, again, what's found in Risque and stripped down. And then you have these mattes, which I think I need more room. There's some Supreme Mauves in here for sure. A lot softer, not as many shades, but very much edited. Very much edited. Again, if you like mauve, but you don't need all the metallics and the shimmers, you just need that one mauve matte that looks fantastic on your skin tone. Maybe one shimmer metallic, maybe. Then any of the palettes I showed, I think you're good. To be sure, because I know we love the mashups and the comparisons, judging from what I just swatched, I think the closest for me is Violette, for sure. I know they're not exactly the same. I know. Just looking at these side by side, Violette is cooler in tone. But what I would like to get into now is a little comparison, applying the shades that look or are similar to each other and see if we could pull it off. If we're going to stick to the cooler, let's go in with Provocative first. And I'm using my Linda primer today. I've been hopping between Linda and applying my LYS concealer for a primer because I did recognize that the mattes are on the drier side. I consider them to be like Viseart, although I think Viseart is drier than Artist Couture. But that's not bad. This is my third time I'm using the palette. I picked up too much. A little bit of overexposed just to blend down what I did, because when it comes to this side is very strange. I can never get the angle right. All right, now I think this shade here is going to give us, well, let's see. Oh yeah, this is definitely cooler. Bao Shao. Taking a little bit of the lilac here, but on the edges, just to kind of create a gradient. Not a prominent one, but I think it will soften the edges of that first application. This is where I think we stray from Violette. The fact that Supreme Mauves has these warmer shades, namely Audacious, I think is what makes this palette unique, because a lot of the palettes I've shown either are cool or a little bit of both, where yes, this is a little bit of both, but the warmer shades are more peachy and not the same mauvey caramel brown. Does that make sense? Put a little more Audacious here. See what happens, because even that all over the lid I think is really pretty with Provocative. Whereas we could go in with this shade that I believe to be, it's definitely going to be cooler, but it has more of a rose tone to it than what's in the first matte we applied. So already you can see the slight differences there, and we have to decide what metallic are we going to apply. But let's do the deeper shade. So I'm going in with Prestige on the outer V. All right, we got a nice smoke there. I'm gonna wipe that brush and go in with this matte. This I think has a similar. This is a little bit cooler. I think this is cooler. Yeah, for sure. All right, I took this out a little too far. I like both so far, but I think you can detect that the Violette side is cooler, which, I mean, assuming by the name itself, Violette versus Mauve, I think Mauve technically could be a little more warm leaning depending on the color. As far as a metallic, well, we could do Seductress, and as I had mentioned in my first video, definitely think going with the finger is the best strategy. You're just going to get better stick, and the color itself I think is very pretty. And with Sex Appeal, I enjoy overlapping these two colors. I think they complement each other well. More pinky from Sex Appeal, more lavender from Seductress, and I'll take Stripped Down, which is like a, It's like a mauve topaz, and I'll place that on the inner lower part of my lash line, and I'll follow through a provocative here for the majority, the rest to connect the two colors here. For this side, well, we could go this route. It's a stronger duochrome. It almost looks like it has like that blue flip in the shade, which it does, with a violet base. It's so pretty, and these are a lot softer to apply than the metallics found in Supreme Mauves. They're not as dry, which might be easier for application. And I'll take this color here, where I would assume be an appropriate highlight shade. And why not? We'll take like this icy blue metallic and plop it right here on the inner part of the lower lash line. Now, unfortunately, I got a little bit this color on that part of my lower lash line, which sometimes happen. My aim is a little off. And you know what? Let's go in with this matte for the lower lash line. Just introducing another shade here. It's a little warmer than what we have up top, but I think it pairs well with what's going on here on the lash line. All right, let's apply some mascara and I'll be right back. And here are the final looks from comparing all the mauve, violet, lilac, pinky shades I have in my collection to Supreme Mauves. I think we can conclude, if we choose to skip Supreme Mauves, we have a Supreme Mauve somewhere in our collection. But I understand the convenience of having all these shades found in one palette. It just makes it seamless in terms of application. You grab one and you're ready to go. And I do recognize how troublesome these metallics can be. They're a different texture. They're much drier than I find what's in Viseart and many of the palettes here. But again, I don't mind it because I work with it and I adore the looks that are created in the end. Again, risque may not be people's favorite, but it is the Stardust shade in the palette. It's going to give you that sparkly, arcly, a little drier. Yes, maybe you don't want these shades anywhere near your eyes because you're sensitive to this type of a texture. So yes, take precaution, maybe skip it altogether. But because I love Pat's astral shades, I knew how to deal with risque. It wasn't so foreign to me, and I was able to come up with the best solution using risque. Again, I like that it's in here, just adds a little bit of a dazzler effect to the shades, but I can understand if you're just more accustomed to using metallics that are smoother, have a little more slip to them, which these do not. But you wet them, you'll get better adherence, more shine for sure. But as I said in my first video, the mattes in here, the colors of the mattes are right up my alley. And to have the more caramel mauve, the more rosy mauve, and the lilac mauve, all the different undertones of mauves found in one palette, where they range from neutral to, I would say maybe cool to neutral. Audacious is the warmest matte in here, but even so, I think it's so special in terms of having that berry tone to it. Not necessarily it looking terracotta or too orange brown, but that berry mauve tone in the brown matte makes it so special for me. And I could just slap on that shade all over my eyes and call it a day and have like that warm toasty look about it. So hopefully this video helped. Hopefully, maybe more importantly, it inspired you to pull out some of these palettes that you might have forgotten that you owned, that we've neglected. I'm guilty of that as well. If you still want to pick up Supreme Mauves, or you have already and you've been playing with it, have formed an opinion about it, maybe you have it, you want to take it back, I'll talk to you down below. I'll see you down in those comments, and until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, Mauve extravaganza, monthly favorites, or vlog. Take care, and I will see you again soon.